So this is our blind date, Omayra.
Nice to meet you, Kim.
Hi. Can you tell me how to pronounce your name properly?
Omayra.
Omayra. And
Yes.
Issa is your last name.
Yes.
And what's the origin of the name?
It is an Arabic name that my parents gave me. Yeah. So
And is there a meaning to your name?
it's supposed to mean little princess.
Oh, well, they knew it from the start. And it fits, right?
It's kind of cheesy, I know.
And soon enough, it will be the queen.
So such a pleasure to be in conversation with you, Kim. Seriously, how are you doing?
I am great. I live in Montreal. So do you live in Saskatchewan? In
Yes, I live.
Saskatoon?
You know what? I used to live in Saskatoon till a month ago when I moved to Regina,
Oh,
and this is where I live now
okay. Have you
for
always
work.
lived in Saskatchewan or?
No, we immigrated from Niger when I was 16, so that was about 20 years ago. And since then, I've been living between Alberta and Saskatchewan, mostly Saskatchewan. So I've traveled a lot across our country, but I've only lived in this part of the country, only lived on the prairies.
Why did you choose well, Saskatchewan or Alberta? Or your
You know,
parents, I should
my
say.
parents, as you know, it was for work that my parents decided to move to Saskatchewan. So we didn't go to Quebec like a lot of francophone families do, and then transition out. But we just came directly here with barely any English for me and for my mother and brothers. So it was quite a journey.
And so in Niger, you studied in French or
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
the second language or?
Yes, French was the third language for me. So we have like our own indigenous languages. So like there's my mother tongue that I spoke at home till the age of 6. Then I went to French school, um, and I was also speaking another local language. So yeah, so by the time I got to elementary school, grade one, was
So
my
in
third
Nigeria,
language.
how many languages do you have as are they
We have
official languages?
No, it's interesting because in Niger, French is our only official language because we were colonized by them for 100 years. The French were there for 100 years. And we have 8 local languages that we speak. So 8 major ethnic groups and 8 languages. So it's not like other African countries where there's like 200 languages. Like I think Nigeria has like 250 languages. The Republic Democratic of Congo has like hundreds of languages. For us, it's pretty modest, but it's pretty significant.
So what would be the language that would speak to everybody or a language that a little bit like China, there are many dialects, but they use Mandarin, right, for everybody.
Mm.
So is there like an official language of the 8 that you have?
You know what? There's the language that is spoken. It's a bit of a lingua franca that is spoken quite a bit in Western Africa in certain Muslim countries, including Niger, and it's Hausa. So a lot of people speak Hausa. So Hausa personally was not my language, but I learned it growing up because it's a language that's spoken by a lot of people. Um, I would say Hausa is definitely the language
So
that a lot of
today,
people speak.
so today French is still taught in school?
Yeah, it's still the administrative language. So all the administrations, the government, the schools, everything. The indigenous languages are not taught in schools at all. So it's very much French dominant.
Okay. And how
Yeah.
is English? Has it been introduced into into the daily life of Niger?
You know what? I wouldn't say the daily life, but definitely the education system starting from high school. Students get to choose another language to study, and often it's English. So we end up learning a bit of English, you know.
Do you think that every language that you speak, because obviously you speak so many languages, shape you differently?
That's an incredible question. I think so. I remember there was a time when, because I learned English late in life, at the age of 16 was when I started learning English, when we came to Saskatchewan. And then I went to university in English without a lot of language skills, but still enough to function, and did a degree in English literature just to, you know, get better at it. And
You didn't speak English, you learned English at 16 and you decided to go into English literature.
yes,
So
yes.
was it because you fell in love with English or with an English speaking person?
Yes, as you know, right?
You really fell in love. I saw that. Even the camera moved
Even the camera
talked
fell.
about it.
How about you? Do you have experience with that? Did you have to learn another
Um,
language because of
I
love?
did. I did fall in love with French, as you know. Well, Vietnam was also colonized by France for 100 years. But contrarily to Niger, we have the language, Vietnamese as our official language. So Vietnamese was taught in school. Of course, there were schools which had French as their main language, but you have Vietnamese schools, right? So um, I think that gave Vietnam like a very strong identity. And the Vietnamese language is so different from the French language because the Vietnamese language is from its origins is from Chinese. So we started off with writing. Uh, Okay. From the beginning, I was going to make it a short story, but it's so difficult. We used to write with characters. So the language was basically based on images and ideas and not sounds, right? Whereas French is really about sound. You just add syllables and you make new words, right? Whereas Vietnamese was really all these pictures. And then the French in the 1800s, they changed the language, the writing language, into the alphabet, the Roman alphabet, ABC, you know. So the Vietnamese language got twisted in a way because it was based on images and now it's written with sound. So you don't see any images anymore, but the language still carries its origins, right, with all the images. And that's why I asked you if the different languages have shaped you, because I know that my mind, even though I speak in French, even though I think in French, I still have these images, which don't exist anymore, even in Vietnamese. And Vietnamese, I don't even master Vietnamese well enough to write with the language, or even to think. But I know that the rhythm, and because the Vietnamese language is monosyllabic, you never have more than two sounds, more than one sound, to the word. And French is, well, as you know, condition, conditionnel, conditionnellement, anticonditionnellement, you just like, it's awful, right? And it's so long. But I know that my rhythm in French when I write, it's still influenced, I think, by Vietnamese, which is a monosyllabic language. And so I was wondering, with all the languages you have, does one affect the other, or would you be a different person in each language? Because I know that I don't speak the same way, and I don't even carry myself the same when I speak in Vietnamese. because it's a language with more, retenue. How do you say that? It's yeah, it's
Restraint. Mhm.
well, yeah. And so I even fold my shoulders when I speak in Vietnamese, contrarily to French where.
Wow, that is so powerful, Kim, because I really appreciate you talking about how languages changes us because I remember vividly the moment when I started dreaming in English. And it terrified me because I thought, oh my goodness, this language is taking the space of my own indigenous language. Um, and I was never able to dream in French, although it's a language that I have been speaking for the majority of my life. And now I find that when it comes to my personality completely changes depending on the language that I'm speaking. And I think languages are so powerful in helping us shape who we are and our relationship to the world as well.
Mm. Because I think languages is never just languages, right? Languages carries the culture of the language, but also the whole story and history, our own story, our own history. When we learn it, where we learn it, from whom, and that's why I think language is never just about language. And I always say, for those who don't speak French, and speak only English, for example, I say you should learn French because in French you have the word gourmand et gourmandise, which means that you eat not because you're hungry, but because you love eating and you have this pleasure of eating, but also you have the guilt, a little bit of guilt, right? When you you
That's me eating chocolate.
Yes, absolutely, right? Or that second dessert or that second scoop, of something.
Totally.
But it's so beautiful. But in English, you don't have an equivalent of the word gourmand and gourmandise. I think because the English don't, never eat just for pleasure or to overeat in a certain way, and have this guilt and pleasure in the same bite, and so in English you would have gluttony, right, which is pure guilt. There's not no pleasure, right? And in French we have that also, glouton, right? But
Mhm.
and so I think, when you speak a language, you carry the whole culture of that language, right? And our relationship with French, right? If you were still in Niger and I was still in Vietnam, French would be linked to a language of colonization, right?
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
and we link it to France, the country, as well, right? Whereas because I did learn French when I was very little, but when
Mhm.
I arrived here in Quebec, I fell in love with Quebec, and you talked about falling in love, and the first second when we arrived, and we have all these Quebecers waiting for us in a parking lot of the hotel, and they were just there picking us up, like holding us physically. And as a Vietnamese back then, I was not so used to people who would express their feelings so openly, right? So that was the first cultural shock. And then the second one was that we arrived from a refugee camp. We were so, ugly with all the infections and everything because we didn't have access to water, but they didn't hesitate to hold us at all, not even 1 second, right? And my third shock was that I had not seen myself the for at least 4 months in the refugee camp, and the first time I saw myself again was in those eyes, and they looked at us as if we were treasures falling from the sky, and I had never seen myself so beautiful, and I have never seen myself as beautiful again because I've lost that vulnerability, right? And so because they spoke Quebecois, I wanted to learn Quebecois. I wanted to embrace that culture. I wanted to be inside that culture and take all of it, right? And so yes, it was about falling in love. Yeah, and that's why I don't think I can write in a different language than that language of love, because when I write, it's really about sharing beauty, right? So they totally shaped the person or the Canadian that I have become, the citizen that I have become, and the woman, that I am today. Yeah, so la langue québécoise, it's really my language of love, and it has nothing to do with the French from France or elsewhere, right? And that's why I was I knew that you had to fall in love.
Somehow, right? Yes. It's so interesting that you're sharing these early experiences in Quebec and in Canada. I think that's so beautiful. What are some of the opportunities along your journey that you've come across early on?
Oh, from the first moment. And since I'm here, I've been in Canada for 43 years now. Every day, it's a gift. It's a gift, opportunities. My God, from just learning the language, right? I still remember this teacher coming towards us and teaching us, for example, an apple. It was not only in a book with the word pomme, it was an apple in her hand, sharing that apple with us, and we arrived from a refugee camp, so of course every bite was, how would I say it, a window into the world, one step closer to paradise. Oh, we were already in paradise, and since then it's paradise every day. How about you? How was it for you to come here, or you know how was the first few days or few weeks?
Oh my goodness. I haven't even thought about that for so long. Because it's been 20 years, certainly hasn't been, 43 years. But I remember the weather. That was the big constants for me. It
Which
was
month? Which month was it?
November. Can you believe
Oh,
it?
it's cold.
It is cold. And we come from a very hot country, right? So I just remember the weather being its own like entity and imposing personality and always there, and the snow always there, and having to live with that and navigate that and learn how to dress properly for it.
Do you
Um,
remember how your skin didn't know how to react to this? Because you're like, is it cold or is it hot, right? Because
yeah.
we never lived that sensation of cold, right? So your brain just go, what is this?
It was really confusing. Yeah, I think it took some time. It was so confusing to me that when I came here, I started eating snow. When I saw snow for the first time, I was like, I didn't know what it was and how it tasted like and the texture of it. So I like ate snow for the first time, which in hindsight might sound a little bit obscure thing to do, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time.
I don't think you're the only one. I think we have all tried it because it's so beautiful, right? And virginal to me anyway. I look at
Mhm.
that. How could that be, right? All this snow, even though we had read about snow in books, it's nothing like, it's not the same when you see
No.
snow the first time, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think your joy is completely infectious and so wonderful. I'm curious to know how your experiences have shaped your worldview. You talked about coming from a refugee camp. I've never been in one, so I don't know what that's like. How did your experiences shape your worldview?
Everything we live every day, right? And my mom says that we are like a a diamond, a diamant brut. How do you say that? Like
Rough diamond.
a rough diamond. And then every experience that we get to live, and every person that we meet would polish a little bit more of that rough diamond. And every experience, every person will help us to shine a little bit more every day, because of their experience. Because even when it's unpleasant, it does, take off a little bit of that dust on that diamond of ours, and it lets light in. And so I would say that I'm very, very lucky. I've got great bosses who have become basically uh, second parents to me. Many of them, because yeah, I get to work on some projects which were so demanding that we didn't have a choice. We had to love each other. If not, we would just die. You know how it is, right? Facing challenges, we fall in love. And because I used to be a lawyer, and so they're quite tough, but because we were facing the same challenges at the same time, we become really, really close. So they have shaped a lot of me, of who I am. But every friend and every encounter at the grocery store, even just sharing a recipe, and learning from each other how to use exactly the same thing, the eggplant, how would you cook it, and how would I cook it? And just that exchange creates a moment of travel, and a history, because it's never about just a recipe, right? You're going to talk about the weather, where it grows, or where you ate it the first time, and with whom, and so forth, so on and so forth. So I think, yeah, I take every day as every encounter is and oh yeah, I have to tell you this story because it's so beautiful. And I'm seeing this tree in my neighborhood. It's the most beautiful tree. I consider that I have, the most beautiful tree in my neighborhood. And so one day I was walking, and I met one woman who had a cane. That's how
Mm.
you call it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I thought that she couldn't see, and I said, I should share, to her, telling her that we are lucky to live in this neighborhood with this
Mm.
tree. And so I said to her, I said, ah, we are so lucky to live in this, next to this beautiful tree. And she said to me, she answered, and she said, yes, it's perfectly round. And and I said, oh my God, I was mistaken, that for thinking that she was blind. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you couldn't see. And she said, she could not see, she cannot see. And I said, oh, so how do you know that it's round? And she said, well, because if you listen to the wind, you would hear how the wind travels, and you can have the shape of the tree, right? Because if you have a peuplier, the
Mm.
wind would not travel in circle, right? But
Wow.
if you stand under the tree, you would hear how the leaves, how do you say that? Yeah, the noise of the leaves would give you the shape of the tree. And then with just that encounter, right, you learn that your ears can give the shape of something. How incredible, right?
Wow. I'll never forget the story that you just shared. What an incredible gift. Thank you for sharing this. Wow, what an offering. You know,
Yeah.
it's making me think about the importance of being aware and of yes, being aware and being
Mm.
present with
So
things.
is there one person who has contributed in shaping who you are?
You know, there's so many people that I've met along the way who have shaped me. I think my grandmother has been such an important presence in my life because she raised me growing up. And then when we came to Canada, I met a lot of mentors who brought a lot to my life, who taught me a lot. Even the English teacher, the English professor at university, brought a lot to me. The first person who gave me my first job at the CBC brought a lot to my life. A lot
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
people.
ask you, how come you end up being a journalist?
It was a concours de circonstances. It was really very much one thing leading to the other. It wasn't part of my big plan. I grew up with a love of news and of information because my grandmother was always listening to the radio in the house. So we always listened to RFI, growing up. And then when I came here, I started a newspaper in high school, in my high school. And then when I went to university, I helped with creating a French newspaper at an English university. And then when I came back to Saskatchewan, I got an opportunity. It was supposed to be for 3 months. And now it's been almost 9 years.
It's done. Now you're a journalist.
That's it. There's no
Uh,
way back.
the I was gonna tell you that I just had a colleague, and now I know that the way that I laugh, it's really from her, because with Zoom, you
Mhm.
see, I see myself too much. I'm not interested in seeing myself, but with Zoom, you can, you try not to, but you still see yourself, right? And I know that I still laugh like this with my hand on my chest. And it's really from my friend France Maguette Bélanger, who used to, we were in the same office at the law firm, and she always laughed like this. And I don't know why, I found it so charming. But maybe
Mm.
just because I like her, I love her, and
Aw.
and we're good friends. So every time I do this, I think that it's almost like a wink at her, at our friendship, and to say, "Oh, France is here." So now I laugh like her. Well, I've been doing this for the last, I don't know, 15 years. I can say that it's mine now, but the small, not I don't think it's small. Maybe it's the symbol, of a long friendship, and again the challenges that we face, because we spend too many white nights at that office.
Must
So,
have brought you closer.
yeah, absolutely. Crying at 3 in the morning and go like, "Oh no, not another file." But there's a poem by Stanley Kunitz, Kunitz. He's an American poet, and he said something like, "Becoming is never being until becoming is being still." And I've been trying to, when I saw the theme of our conversation, becoming, it came to my mind right away. Becoming is never being till becoming is being still. And I don't understand what it means, but I love it so much. So I was gonna ask you, do you understand it? But especially English literature. Maybe you can explain it to me, what
Oh
it.
my goodness. I mean, you're the writer and the the person who works with language. I guess we both do. But something around being and stillness. I do believe that. I think um, becoming is such an intangible thing, right? It's really hard to think through it and to think about when am I becoming, who am I becoming, through what processes am I becoming, and becoming what, right? What are we? Are we chasing after something? Um, I'd like to think that life happens to us more than we make life happen. Um, so who we end up becoming is very much arbitrary. I I rarely think that we have control over what happens in life. It might be
We
because
have
I've been
no control.
displaced, you know, might be because I've had to adapt to so many different spaces that I live in. But what do you think?
I also agree with you that life happens to us. We have zero control. We
Mhm.
can dream about something, we can kind of plan for the fun of planning, and not plan, but to be ready for whatever, to train ourselves to be ready for whatever comes next. And I think, I'm the luckiest girl on this planet. You've just met, you are meeting the luckiest girl right here. I am the personification of the word chance, right? And somebody said to me that, and I always say that, and many people have said to me, no, that I was in the wrong, that it's not that because I'm lucky, but they said that I'm always ready to take on chance when chance comes towards me. And when you say life happens to us, um so I really think that life comes to us like a tsunami with so many things, right? No, tsunami, maybe it's too negative, but more like a waterfall. And it depends on the size of your cup, right? In order to gather that water, but there's so much coming to me, and in my head I have only a small cup. But it started with a teacup, a really tiny teacup, and now it's getting a little bigger, because I have more tools, I guess, to take in a little bit more of life. But for example, that example of the tree, I think if I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have the confidence in me enough to start speaking to a stranger and to feel that I want to share, something. But now at 50, now I'm 53 now. When I met her, I was maybe 52. I was ready to talk to anybody, just to be there and to share and not be shy anymore. And yeah, life certainly happens to us. When we got off our boat, 15 minutes later, a rain came down, and the boat just broke right in front of us, right? And we were still on that beach, all of us, the 218 people, looking at this tiny boat, fishing boat of 10 meters long, breaking up, right? And even, I don't have a religion, and it doesn't matter if you have a religion or not, if you believe in God or not. All of a sudden you believe in something bigger than you, because 15 minutes more and I wouldn't be here today with you, right? How crazy is that? And so that's why life certainly has its own control, and it doesn't share with us at all, that control. And we just come along for the journey, right? And becoming is a lot about just, yeah, getting it onto that trip and be part of that trip, I think. And um and i i, I don't see, contradiction between becoming and being. I think you need to be in order to become. Otherwise, it's impossible. Or becoming is already being, in my mind. So yeah, it's still a mystery to me, that sentence, becoming and being.
What a beautiful imagery that you bring forward, Kim. I just it's like I was with you, when you were recounting that story. Absolutely incredible. You talked about being off the boat just minutes before it was destroyed. We know that a lot of Vietnamese people did arrive in 1981 here in Canada. Um, and I know we've talked about becoming as this intangible thing, and it's hard to think through. Um, what experience did they have in order to become Canadian, or is that even a way of thinking through that question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, when did you feel like that you are Canadian, you know? In my case, it was the first minute when I saw myself in the eyes of the people who were waiting for us at the parking lot. And I became Canadian before I knew the word Canada, because you fall in love, right? And you were, and their love was so pure and so generous. You know, they loved us for nothing. We could not give back anything to them, right? There was no purpose for them to love us. They were just there to be, to share human kindness, to be, to live a moment of human, you know, one human with another human. That was it. There was nothing else, right? And so yeah, I became Canadian on that first moment. How about you? How long did it take you to before you felt that you are, you know, 100% Canadian?
It's such an interesting. I think I am becoming Canadian. I think I am consistently and constantly becoming Canadian. Um, I don't think that it's one identity that we get into and then we become that. Um, I think there's multitude ways of being Canadian. And for me, I listen to a lot of African music. It's my way of connecting with myself. And sometimes when I do that, um, in the middle of Saskatchewan, where there's probably no one, barely anybody that I can relate to on that musical love, right? Very few people, anyways. It I feel this connection, I think a lot about what I have received from Canadians. Um, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
But I
Um,
think that's being Canada. You know,
mm,
that's being Canadian and living in Canada, to be able to live in the middle of Saskatchewan and listen to African music,
mm,
right? And still feel that you totally have the right to do that, and that's you, you know, connecting to yourself. You know, very I remember in one school, the students asked me in their circle like that, to draw the percentage of me still being Vietnamese and the rest as Canadian or Quebecer and so on and so forth. And and then so I asked them to draw that circle for me first before I answer. And you know, some of them 20%, 80%, whatever, you know, different percentages. And and I said, but that's how I don't think you have to do it that way. Because in Canada, in this country, we're allowed to draw as many circles as we want. And I'm 100% Canadian, and I'm 100% Vietnamese, and 100% Quebecers, because and I said it's not because I understand the whole of the Canadian culture. First of all, it's impossible because it's always evolving, right? Every day, different people would add different things to into this identity, right? And luckily that we keep moving, because life moves, you know, it never stops, right? So we
yeah.
have to keep on moving in order to be in sync with life. And so I, I think we don't need to, you know, to know a culture perfectly to say that we are part of that culture, right? And so I said to them that. We don't have to sit between the chairs. We sit on all chairs, and we're 100% in all the things that we love. If you love, African music enough, then it's your music, right? If you love this country unconditionally, then it's your country and it's your culture. And I love Sweden and Japan. And I don't speak any of the languages. I have only visited these countries, and I said, I feel like I'm 100% Japanese as well and Swedish as well, because I love them so much. I love those two cultures so much, and so I think that's what Canada has given us, the freedom to love, don't you think?
You know what? I absolutely agree with you. There's freedom here in ways that is probably not possible in other places in the world. And I'm forever grateful for my parents for making that big journey. We, we gain a lot here, but we also lose a lot when we leave. I think a lot about that, about the things that we leave behind as we embrace new things. But those new things are so precious.
But do you think that we really leave behind, or we carry them with us still?
Mm,
That your love for African music still today, uh,
yeah.
right? So maybe we don't leave so many, well, material things, of course, but I think what we or what we were made of, during the
Mm,
first 16 years, I think we get to carry that, right? And this is why I don't know if there are many countries where we can do this openly, and that the people who don't know about our luggage or what we bring are happy and open to welcome that, right? And I'm sure if you want to to introduce African music to your friends, they'll be happy to listen to, right? Even though they don't have the connection that you have, they'll still be like, oh my God, this is so nice. This is new. I want to hear, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Such a delight to talk to you, Kim. An incredible story. Well, thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciate you having this conversation with me.